All right. So here we have Paul Thomas Anderson's films. They're going to be tier ranked. Good news is there's not that many of them, but I have seen all of them. I think it's the only director, aside from Tarantino, where I've probably seen every single one of his films, bar none. However, there are so many other directors I've seen just as many films. It's just they've made so many more films. P.T. Anderson, and Quentin Tarantino just haven't made that many. And the good news is that they put a lot more of their lifeblood into these films, and these films kind of stand above other movies as more, as masterworks. Now, We'll just start from the top. I don't know if this is alphabetical. This list seems rather arbitrary, but I'll just start from the list that was configured for me. Um, Punch Drunk Love. I think this movie is very clever. I like the first act more than where it goes later on. Even if Philip Seymour Hoffman kind of has a welcome appearance in the third act or whatever, I still think it, it sort of dies down, dwindles. I'll give it a B. I would watch a scene on TV were it playing in a heartbeat, but I wouldn't, watch the whole thing. I mean, I don't think I could tolerate watching it with commercial breaks. It's a boring enough film that with commercial breaks you wouldn't want to watch the whole thing. There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood's a little, maybe a better on the margin. I think There Will Be Blood is also rather boring. All these films probably don't play that well on television. Um, There Will Be Blood though is has a phenomenal set piece extravaganza where it's all this sort of this unadorned wild old west industrialist oilman you know landscape. It's got this sort of Presbyterian sort of bird's eye view of America and right before the turn of the century. Um, it's a cool movie. I don't know if it's my favorite. I think it's a very slow movie for how captivating the finale was. It really kind of wraps up at the end in a riveting, shocking way. This film is sort of laden with an atmosphere of cool violence, but you don't really get to meddle with it until the end. I think that's sort of a bad tack in some ways. So I would say this isn't certainly an auteur film. Certainly stands alone. It lost Best Picture to No Country for Old Men though, which I do think is the superior film. I think There Will Be Blood. On the surface, it's very similar to No Country for Old Men, but I think it is not. I think it is inferior in several ways. Tonally, I think pacing. I think the acting might be better, but that's about it. Um, and even then, it's only somewhat better. I think the I think the costume and production design is slightly better than in a No Country, but not blatantly. So, not there's no over the top advantage. So I would say it's B. I would say it's the opposite of Punch Drunk Love. I would say it's the historical version of Punch Drunk Love in a way. I mean, they're both very awkward protagonists with minimally redeeming uh, charm in their personalities, respectively. Magnolia. I think Magnolia is a far better film. Every scene in Magnolia is so riveting, and something soothing about this movie. It's a therapeutic movie in a way. Um, Hard Eight. Hard Eight is it's got punchy dialogue. It's a snazzier film. It's low budget, but for how low budget it is, it's pretty funny. I'd say it's B. I'd say it's a B level sort of comedy thriller or whatever, action comedy. It's not the protagonist is kind of like this old man, and he sort of drags the film down a little, but the film is sort of, it's got a certain component of realism to it, I think. Sort of awkward, balance of power that goes on throughout between the different types of characters. Inherent Vice. Inherent Vice is a weird film, but I think it's a captivating one. The scenes are rambunctious. I give it an A because it's just so convoluted and balls to the wall. Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is also an A, I think. I think it's got some wittiness to it that makes it more charming as an overarching story than the ones in B. The Master. The Master is an S for me. I think every scene said something about life, and not that's how hard a feat to achieve as a filmmaker. And every scene that I can remember from The Master had some sort of pungent social commentary embedded within it that was just inextricable. So The Master, ironically, is the most masterful film. That's just how it is with Paul Thomas Anderson. There's always going to be a little bit of irony and self-referential nod nodding. Licorice Pizza, I think also an S. I think this movie was very, very tasteful in its recapitulation of sort of the 70s lifestyle, youth culture, um, the popularity games of high school. I think it was very a good. It's a slice of life film, but it's also a very humorous film that's not easily done, especially when it's a period film. As a picture, it was really, really, really visually stimulating for me because it had a lot of, or for anyone, because it had a lot of 70s sort of matte, graphic design littered throughout the film. And it obviously takes place in the San Fernando Valley where that kind of thing is absolutely necessary. So I thought the film was a tour de force for what it was. It reminded me of Fast Times a little bit. Maybe not as funny as Fast Times, maybe not as clever, for jokes go, but it was still had the tone. And then I think it was even more clever than another favorite, which is Dazed and Confused. And it may not have had the authentic look of Dazed and Confused. It might have been a little more uh, sort of plush, manufactured, and maudlin and cheesy. But it still, but it that kind of emphasized sort of the surrealist, expressionist component to the film, which I um, still adore, but at the time I thought was very cool, and now I think of it as more of an extremely charming thing. I don't really see it as cool because I think if you did want to make a movie like Licorice Pizza, you would want to be more true to life. But when Paul Thomas Anderson does it, he's gonna make it. Um, he's gonna play up the retro sort of re-aestheticization, and it's going to end up being retouched with a whole new thread of style that wasn't really necessary, but probably on some level was expected. So I think it's also a masterwork. I'll give it an S. It's hard to convey what I liked about it. I think I just combined the sort of necessary cutesiness with the same necessary nostalgia. I think it's a film it's a period film, but it's so blatantly nostalgic that it's almost a mockery of period films, and that's kind of the genius is that there's a self-aware component that's very elegant. Okay, or if not elegant, at least it was amusing in a rare kind of way. Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights is not it for me is it would be nice to have all these three up in S, these three in A, and these three in B. I do think that Boogie Nights is an imperfect film. I think it's an A. I think it's A, or I think it's actually a B plus. It's a rather slow on the take film with a strong finale. It's kind of a wild ride. It's a little demented at times, but that's sort of part of the allure of a film about the porn industry in the valley. I just find my problem with it is it's inc- incredibly sort of self glorifying. For some reason, there seems to be this weird sense of pride that this movie is about the porn industry, which I don't think is deserved or sensible or coherent, whatever, what have you, right? But like, for me, this movie is very slow for second act. The first act is tolerable, and the third act is really kind of fun. But the second act is just too slow for me to put in A or S, which is sad because I'm basically saying that it's only good for its scrap value. But even then, it's exceedingly high scrap value, higher than most films out there on their own merits alone. So, yeah, that's about it. Four and B, three and A, and two and S. That's better than a lot of people, but it's not pitch perfect, not by any means. And that's it. At about 11 minutes, we ranked the 10 P.T. Anderson films. I believe he wrote most all these himself. He had a cinematographer, I believe, for most of them, but I know for in Phantom Thread and maybe Licorice Pizza, but definitely in Phantom Thread, he did all the cinematography on his own. That was the second to last movie. Now look at this is penultimate, right? Look at the ultimate movies, Licorice Pizza. Let's see if he had a cinematographer. Mm. Yeah, it had Michael Bauman, but also Paul Thomas Anderson doing the cinematography. I felt like Paul Thomas Anderson's cinematography is somewhat better than the cinematography of his collaborators. So that's something that uh, I'll try to remind myself to mention at a cocktail party whenever that happens. But yeah, I think that's my most scholarly and academic insight that you can take away from this. Anyway, this is 12 minutes and 30 seconds, and that's 10 movies reviewed. Paul Thomas Anderson. Good night and good luck.